Yeah, it's great to be here. I think many of you will recognise me from doing the open mic, so it's a privilege to be back here and to do the headline slot. This is my first reading in 19 months, so it's very weird to see you all in the flesh, rather than seeing you in little tiles on Zoom. So I guess the downside for you is that means you can't just reach for the mute button. So as Myrna said in her introduction there, I've got a new book out, so I'm going to be starting by reading a few from that. I'm going to be reading a few from my debut collection, The Devil's Moon. I'm going to end by reading a few new things from my new project. So, as Myrna said, my new collection is called Traumatropic Heart, and that's from the concept of traumatropism, which, as she said, is when a tree or plant is damaged, such as through lightning, but it continues to grow, often in a strange and distorted fashion. And I just thought it was a wonderful metaphor for the trials that we endure in our lives, that can send us in a journey that we never anticipated and that can perhaps make us stronger as individuals. So it starts off with a narrative arc, which starts very much in a nature-based setting, where we encounter things like owls and bodies twining with nature. And then it moves on into a more domestic setting where we have things like tree houses and dolls' houses. So I'm going to open with the first poem in the collection, which is also the title poem, which sort of sets the scene for what's going on. It's called Traumatropic Heart. When the storm fells the oak's bough, I pick up the blackbirds that were nesting in its crook. I swallow them both beak first, and they fly, resolute, into the heavy chambers of my traumatropic heart. They annex them with woven blankets, strands of wisteria that root and bind together fractured dreams. I feel my body cleave to their nurture, and when spring returns, the birds take wing and leave me, stronger. Thank you. Birds are one of the recurrent theme in the collection, and this next piece includes magpies, which takes as its starting point the nursery rhyme, 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy. But it's also about the lengths that we go to maintain happiness, irrespective of how that affects other people. So it's called Magpie Eggs. I've been collecting magpie eggs again. Their speckled minchels gleaming dully in the sunrise as I lift them from nests and weigh them in my freckled hands. The heaviest I transfer to an insulated box. Add a heat pad and dish of cool water that glints iridescently in the half light, and I rotate them 3 times a day. I am mother and father to this parliament, and if they hatch, I will tend to their needs. Feed them squashed mealworms and grain from my mouth until they imprint on me. At 2 weeks old, I will take the strongest pair, 1 male and 1 female, and drown the rest of the brood within their sight. These remaining birds I will keep in my care. When they fledge, I will tether them, a length of black twine from the ankle of one, and a length of white from the other, that's tied in a tight loop around my left wrist. I will cast them into the late spring sun, watch them rise until stayed by the leashes, and when they circle above my head, I will always be surrounded by joy. Thank you. This next piece was requested by my friend Gary, who has just walked in. During lockdown, we went on a walk almost every day, which gave me the opportunity to spend a lot of time in nature and thinking about things. But I think like many people right at the start, as we were going into lockdown, I couldn't really think or concentrate properly. And this poem was one of the first that got written after that breakthrough, and it felt like a real achievement at the time. So it's called The Tree House. The rungs on the ladder become cramped in his grip, the weather-worn wood creaking as he climbs to where I wait. There's hardly enough space to sit, the house holding it as womb tight as we tuck knees under our chins and scuff our toes on the wall. The stale air holds the memory of warm lemonade in beakers, of comic books that are sticky with sugar mice and toffee fingerprints. Yet there's no taste of sweets on his lips when we kiss, in the stolen time before the school bell rings. There's no scrape of a glass bottle being spun or of dares being accepted, with nervous, mouth-covered laughter when his daughter slams the gate. Her footsteps rise to where we hide, and startled, we become silent statues in the treehouse that she has outgrown, but that's too small to contain our guilt. Thank you. I first came across the concept of stone babies through an album by a Manchester-based artist called Jessica Hoop. Her album's called Stone Child. And it's a medical phenomenon when a pregnancy, usually a abdominal pregnancy, fails, but the fetus is too big for the body to reabsorb it. And so in order to protect the mother from infection, it becomes calcified. There are instances of women carrying these around for decades, not knowing that they ever existed, which I just found incredibly moving. So that was the starting point for this poem, which is called Stone Babies. Stone babies grow here. Their colourless eyes close in a dark shared dream, and their once soft hands carved into a tight hold. In one another, they'll always have the company they'll ever need. And as I curl under the sheets in the thin grey light of morning, they make an unspoken pact to never be born. I carry their secret, unknowing, while their skin calcifies inside me. My body shrinks around them, hardening until a third strata is born. Thank you. And the last one I'm going to read from my new book started out as a call from a magazine for poems inspired by Halloween. I was trying to think of things that didn't involve the usual witches and ghosts. And this was around the time that Me Too was taking off, which got me thinking about the horrors that we endure on an everyday basis, the everyday sexisms that we endure. And so that was the starting point for this poem, which is called The Last in a Long Line. I'm the lost in a long line of ghosts, of women whose bloom grew diseased under the heat of the glass house, who lost their minds and scuttled barefoot over forks after being told that no meant yes all their lives, whose blood ran down their legs and was washed from view down drains after a crochet hook and too hot bath. I'm the last in a long line of ghosts who fought to dismantle this house and exorcise those who've lived here, whose matrilineal scars weakened its foundations and shook its dusty, cracked windows until its inhabitants woke from dreamless sleep. Now I want you to have the courage to enter and help me build it anew, brick by hopeful brick. Thank you. I'm going to read you a couple now from my debut collection, Under the Devil's Moon, which came out in 2015. Alongside poetry, one of my main interests is music. And this poem took as a starting point a line from a song by a band called Smog, which says, "I break horses, I don't tend to them." So this is rebuking that, really. It's called Horse. In the stables, the brass stirrups and bits jingle in the breeze, and the horse gently snorts. I stand on a box stool, wrap my hands in its mane, and haul myself up bareback. I scarcely touch its side before it starts to walk, to trot, to canter. The cold air tears at my throat. The wind whips pins from my plait. The branches we crash through rip at my skirt. And I start to gag, and my hair unravels down my back, and capillary red pinpricks marble white thighs. And I don't break horses. No. Horses break me into someone who's free. Thank you. I don't really believe in horoscopes, but I'm a Pisces, and I love to spend time by water and in water. So this was, it started off anyway as an amusing little piece, but it became probably something a little more. It's called Pisces. I choose to become my own star sign. Water sliding past my paddle hands and forming a metronomic 4/4 ripple that stills the crash of my thoughts each time I pull myself forward. The muscles in my sinewy arms and legs contracting, relaxing, contracting, relaxing, in time to the pattern of the waves. I pass and turn in the pool's lane, chlorine burning my parched throat as my strokes become dead-weighted. My movements belaboured and juddery as my lips sting and my third eyelid blinks. Blind to my horoscope's destiny to swim until exhausted, I sink under the breakers and come to rest on the tiled floor. Blue sun rays pierce through the surface, lighting my skin as it hardens into scales. My lungs pressurize into twin gill arches, and the flesh on my fingers and toes fusing. Sleek and muscular, I thrash my flute tail and break the pool's imprisoning walls, the water rushing in torrents towards a river where, carried along with it, I start life anew. Thank you. Thank you. Last month's headliner, Becky Cherryman, once said that every woman writer should have at least one poem about wolves. I think at the last count I had about 3, but the one I'm going to read you tonight is called When We Were Wolves. When we were wolves, we slunk in briar under the cover of dusk, and we slept with russet leaves trapped in our mottled fur. Our constant companion was fear, and it tore at our shackles with a rage we could not tame, until we came upon a stream that held a fingernail moon. We dredged it out of the water, and although we were afraid, we held it high above our heads and sliced open the dark canopy that held us down. Now we shrug off this fur. We put red cloaks on our backs. We dance with firework eyes, and just for a short while, we pretend that we're free. Thank you. I'm just going to finish on 2 poems from my next project, which is going to be poems which about women's experiences, both real and imaginary. This first one's called Carrie, which is in reference to the Stephen King novel of the same title. I learn about the shame of a woman's body from my mother's handwritten notes, the ones I pass, red-faced, to my teacher that excuse me from showers and swimming. I stand at the edge of the echoing pool, flush under the stare of my classmates, and imagine every laugh is aimed at me, humiliated by my exclusion, and worried that while I stand here, everyone can smell the iron of my blood, see the stain seeping into my skirt's fabric and dribbling down the inside of my thighs. There's no pride in womanhood here, no sisterly bond in the changing room, when our pubescent bodies are revealed from under layers of baggy clothing, where every breastbud and roll of fat is scrutinised and found wanting, where pads and tampons are bad, but not even needing them is worse. Steeped in lessons from Carrie, we fear becoming target of ridicule, are cruel and careless with our bodies as we absorb a shame that we don't understand. Thank you. And before I read this final poem, I should do the shameless plug. I've got copies of my new collection, Traumatropic Heart, available for £5. Under the Devil's Moon for £7. You can get them both for the bargain price of £10, which is less than 2 coffees and a slice of cake. So come and find me during the interval if you want to buy one. This last piece was inspired by my niece, who's got gorgeous red hair. She's about 7 now, but when she was born, one of the first things my mother said was, well, it's a shame about the hair colour, bearing in mind that she gave birth to 2 children with red hair. So this is a poem really about my niece, and hoping that in some convoluted way it tells her that she should take pride in her hair colour because it's beautiful and she's a beautiful person. It's called Red. This is our history, told through fire and water. It starts in our homes, a place of gods and dragons that we left behind to travel over the sea to the land of angels. But what angels were these that burnt our grandmothers at the stake as witches and drowned our mothers in the village pond as heretics? Yet, child, the shame is not ours to bear. We are Lady Lazarus, and with our hair of red, we will dance in the flames. We will sing underwater, and we will prevail. Thank you very much. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the night.